And therefore those with a bit of experience taking on those newcomers will be a really interesting fight. One of those newcomers on his debut, Matt Rees, takes pole position from another newcomer taking the Pro-Am pole. That's Sid Smith ahead of Will Martin and Hugo Ellis, with former touring car racers returning to Porsche, Stephen Jelley and George Gamble on row 3. The fourth row, Josh Malin, one to watch. Harry Foster likewise ahead of Oliver White and Josh Stanton. The new Porsche Junior is James Wallace. He drives the JTR. He's alongside on the next row of the grid, Angus Whiteside. Charles Rainford is a long way back. Andrew Rackstraw is next. Then you've got Will Burns also returning to the championship, at a gap where Will Aspin's car should have been. Liquid found on the track underneath it. It's been pushed into the pit lane. Ross Wiley and Ollie Jackson come next, ahead of Henry Dawes and Dan Lloyd. Jack Butel and Ali Eaton, both from Pro-Am, on the penultimate row, and the last driver on the grid is Lee Mole, the 1AM entry this weekend. Lee Mole, who's for Team Parker Racing, making a return to modern racing, having had a few seasons in historics, and really enjoying these 4-litre 510 horsepower cars. And there in the pit lane is Will Aspin. So there was a bit of concern around that car, and in the end, once it had been pushed off the grid, there was liquid found on the road underneath it.
Yeah, it looked like coolant to me, whether the car just overheated and was breathing it out, but the boys have been trying to work it on the car. All these cars are now on slicks. The last race was won by the sole car on slicks, and Lewis Selby, and so everyone's taken heed of that, and everyone's on slicks. This will be their only race of the day, so they're going to give it absolutely everything. That's the little bit of fluid on the track, which is actually in front of Ollie Jackson's car, but he will hopefully be able to swerve around that and avoid it. But yeah, two rookies on the front of the grid, an incredibly close qualifying, less than 1/10 of a second covering the top 5 cars, and 7/10 covering the top 22. Incredible.
Matthew Rees, the Welsh driver for Stuart Parker's Team Parker Racing squad, there in the Weir Tools livery. He slots into place on pole position. Sid Smith in the green and white colours is on the second rank of the grid there, with the pseudo works colours of years gone by is Ollie Jackson, same livery that he had last year, making his way up onto the grid. New drivers we talked about, new teams as well. There's Eden Race Drive, run by Dino Zamparelli, coming into the championship this year. We'll touch on those cars as the race progresses, because the opening round of Porsche Carrera Cup GB is set to get underway on an ever-drying Donington Park National Circuit. Matt Rees, Sid Smith the front row, Will Martin, Hugo Ellis on row 2. Drivers look to the lights, which are red. Engine notes rise. It is blast off, and a good start by Rees, but a better start arguably by Smith. Stephen Jelley in the blue nose car gets up the inside, and there's a bit of crowding going on there as Will Martin gets edged towards the green bit. Down they come towards Redgate. Sid Smith on the outside line tries to go for position, gets run out wide all over the curb, and that means as they plunge downhill for the first time, Matthew Rees leads.
Yeah, you can tell Matt Rees and Sid Smith come from single-seaters. They were very aggressive in the run down to the... oh, we got 2 cars off on the inside.
Josh Stanton.
Yeah. I think that might be Ollie White.
It is indeed, yeah. And Josh Stanton might be able to recover. Oliver White, the former Formula 4 racer, back on track. And if they can survive all of that, that's a big result. It means the race can carry on unaffected as the leaders go up through McLean's for the first time. Ollie Jackson there trying to find a way through the traffic. Matthew Rees leads, but he's not getting away, is he?
No, he's not. Will Martin actually made the best start from the second row, but got unceremoniously pushed towards the grass by Matt Rees in his justifiable defence of the lead.
So down to the chicane for the first time, Ollie Jackson trying to go defensive, as it's, what, 3 for the lead, really, because as they come out of the chicane, Matt Rees does have the advantage. It is Sid Smith behind him, and they're going after them. As you can see in third place now, it is George Gamble. Now, he's had a really good first lap up from 6th on the grid, and we've got another one off the road and into the gravel.
That looks like Will Aspin, actually.
I think you might be right,
yeah.
So Will Aspin from the pit lane is out of the race. And Rees, Smith, Gamble, Martin, Malin making good progress to 5th, and Jelley is your top 6, and a safety car deployed.
Yeah, well, safety car deployed, that will close everyone up. But yeah, as you say, great start from George Gamble. He was actually quickest in the testing here earlier in the week. And one of those cars very close to pole with the qualifying times, but he's had a really good first lap. It gives them a chance to get a bit more heat in these tyres. Michelin slicks, control tyre for all of the cars, and they'll have a nice fresh set on the car for this race. Obviously, not knowing having a second race today, they'll put their best tyres on for now. But yes, we got 5 former touring car drivers in the field as well, and they'll be keen to make an impression. George Gamble being one of them, of course.
Yeah, sort of trying to rebuild his confidence after a tough touring car season. Let's try and piece together the Josh Stanton, Oliver White dramas. That is midfield, bit of a touch between White on the inside, Stanton on the outside. Around goes Josh, and they just toboggan down the hill.
Yeah. Fortunately, they kept both the cars going and didn't get stuck on the inside there, which was really good.
Stephen Jolly's start, bit of creeping and then stopping. That was Hugo Ellis.
Very difficult to get the cars off the line, a damp track and slicks. Jelly actually got a great start. In front of him, he can see Will Martin getting forced on towards the grass. Jelly ends up on the outside. I think he almost outbrakes him, and through goes George Gamble there in the Century racing car on the inside, who also gets through neatly past. A little bit of cold tyre issue here. You can see how twitchy the car feels in the hands of Jelly. He's twitching it about, trying to get some temperature in those tyres, but look decidedly sketchy on the first few corners. Another view of the start and some wheel spin from Rees, which was what dropped him into the clutches of Will Martin, but he was able to hold that position.
Josh Stanton made a decent getaway, but he's in the pits, a legacy of the damage after his trip through the gravel on that opening lap. So we're behind the safety car, just whilst Will Aspin's car is retrieved from the gravel. So started from the pit lane and then off the road. So it's been a disappointing race for him, and whether Josh Stanton rejoins, we'll have to wait and see. Down to the chicane they come. Lights still flash on top of the safety car, so it means that we're still under these controlled conditions. Now, unlike touring cars, for example, you don't add laps on to Carrera Cup. It gets a long time slot of half an hour.
Yeah.
So if you have a safety car period, well, because it's been a long race anyway, that does eat into the allotted distance. That's Josh Stanton in the pits.
Yeah, clearing out the front. Obviously a lot of gravel and muck went in the front there. Need to get that out for the cooling.
So the rest of the pack coming out of the chicane. Race order: Matthew Rees ahead of Sid Smith, George Gamble is third, Will Martin fourth, Josh Malin fifth, sixth is Stephen Jelly, seventh Hugo Ellis, Angus Whiteside is eighth, ninth Charles Rainford, and then the Porsche Junior James Wallace in 10th place. Sid Smith leading in Pro-Am, and Lee Mole is the Am in the entry. He's 21st. So this is Stephen Jelly's view heading down the hill. Road getting ever drier, ever faster. Qualifying, these cars were doing around the 65-second mark, but we've not really yet had a proper flying lap to see a race pace out of them just yet.
Yeah, Stephen Jelly, of course, returning to Carrera Cup. He did 4 years in Carrera Cup. He did 2010, 2011 and 2015-16. And in those 4 years scored 7 wins, so he knows how to drive these cars. I think he's thoroughly enjoying driving this new generation of car, because the last one he drove in 16 was the older version, so he's really enjoying this new car, and a powerful rear-wheel drive car after the last season in touring cars in the BMW.
Harry Foster's start and Josh Malin's starts are going to be investigated after the race. Nothing about Hugo Ellis, who we saw have that little creep but stop, so maybe the car was still okay within its box on the grid on the start line markings. That's Will Aspin's car almost out of the gravel.
I wonder if he went off on his own coolant when he was, whether that leak was still there, because it's a bit of an odd place to go off there. So I wonder if he still had some coolant leaking onto the rear tyres, and that sent him off.
Marshall's being very careful so that the car doesn't ground on all those bumps as the telehandler has to sort of go through the ruts it has created. The bumping effect, the bounce, then could have impacted the race car. So thankfully that's averted. And the pace is starting to quicken as the leaders come across the line once more. We've done 4 laps then of the 24, onto lap number 5 now, 23 minutes and change on the clock. Matthew Rees remaining, of course, the race leader. In the classes, Sid Smith, second overall, leading Pro-Am. His opposition is 8th, Angus Whiteside.
Yeah, in fact, in qualifying, Angus Whiteside was fastest when they all did their first run on tyres. It was only on the second run that everybody went a bit quicker, but Angus Whiteside returning to Carrera Cup and very fired up to try and win that Pro-Am category. But in Sid Smith, he's got a real strong opponent, hasn't he?
Yes, indeed. Angus Whiteside more experienced in these cars, but Sid Smith looking really impressive in qualifying. Just been looking at Angus Whiteside, there he is again, in the grey and blue and white livery, heading up now towards Schwantz Curve. So the light's still on top of the safety car. Matt Rees, it is the race leader, a name that we've been familiar to see in the Toka paddock a few years ago when he was driving in British Formula 4. He drove to victory in the Rookie Cup in 2021. He's had a couple of years in the GB3 Championship, but a career switch to sports cars for this year. The lights out on top of the safety car mean that we will go racing at the end of this lap.
Yeah, tyres all nicely up to temperature, and Matt Rees can control the restart. BRDC superstar is Matt Rees under the guidance of Andy Merrick, and he's gone. He's already bolted.
So Matt Rees then, in the green and black colours, leads the way into and out of the chicane. This is the end of lap 5. We're back racing at Donington then in Carrera Cup GB, and Matt Rees leads. Sid Smith chasing after him. George Gamble third. Well, he had a great first lap of the race. Let's see what he can do on the restart lap as they dive down towards Redgate. Will Martin is 4th. 5th is Josh Malin, and Stephen Jelly 6th.
Well, Sid Smith's obviously been watching previous Carrera Cup races because he was immediately on the lights, flashing the lights on the restart, wasn't he? Which is a feature of Porsche Carrera Cup racing, to try and intimidate the car in front. Not that it ever works.
Stephen Jelly busy going down through the Craner curves. Wide up the curve on the outside. It's dry enough now to get a bit of traction off there. Left towards Schwantz curve and then the climb up the hill. So now it's game on for the race lead. Sid Smith might be in the Pro-Am class, but he's having a go for the outright lead. Very wide Matt Rees. But Smith here is being given a real workover because he's got George Gamble right up behind him.
Yeah, and all through on the inside there. Jelly through on Ellis.
Yeah, stays ahead, doesn't he?
Stays ahead, yeah. He was ahead anyway. But fighting back, he's having to defend down the inside. Is Stephen Jelly in the background. The front 4, nose to tail.
4 for the race lead. Will Martin is the 4th of them. He's joined the group. So as they come across the line, Rees, Smith, Gamble, Martin is the leading quartet. They pound past the pits once more. Matthew Rees in his first race in one of these cars in the British Championship. Under attack, George Gamble lines up for a go on the inside line there. Should be able to go through. The Century Motorsport car on the inside, but the door is open and a really good dive by Will Martin. There's contact. Sideways is Smith. Is he going to hang on to it? He's not. Can they all avoid him? He's in the middle of the road. Cars are scattered left and they've scattered right. And amazingly enough, everybody has got around the stricken car of Sid Smith. That is Hugo Ellis, I think, who's off the road and back on again. That could have been a whole lot worse. That was so unfortunate for Sid Smith. He was the meat in the sandwich, wasn't he? Because having run a little bit wide, it was Will Martin, wasn't it, I think, going through on the inside, which he was absolutely had the right to do, but they all came together. And Ellis was also across the grass. So you've got Will Martin on the inside, George Gamble in the middle. He rides up, makes contact with Sid Smith that ends up spinning. And that's what forces Ellis off to the left then when they all take avoiding action. That was very, very close indeed with that car absolutely in the middle of the road. And George Gamble there, look, as you say, getting briefly airborne. That turned around Sid Smith. And one of those that came very, very close to T-boning Sid Smith's car was Stephen Jelly, but he just managed to get around. This is how Stephen Jelly saw it, so it's all kicking off ahead of him round Redgate. Look up the road. Yeah, he'll be looking past the car in front of him and he'll see this action. And look, he lifts off early, decides to go left, which was the right way to go, but in jinking left, he actually forced Ellis off the road to the left of him. And that's the leader, Matt Rees, off the road and back on again, so he's thrown it away down at the old hairpin. Matt Rees has thrown away the race lead. And how did he do it? Let's see, he was all on his own. He comes into the old hairpin, he turns in the car, has a bit of a twitch, he's sideways, and he's off the road and through the gravel. So Will Martin will now take over the race lead. He was just too deep on the brakes. The car was twitching on the brakes. He knew he was too late. He's on the dampers. Oh, Jelly's been off the road. That's a big hit into the tyres, look, because he's damaged the belting. That's at the old hairpin. Now, I know it's been wet there all day, but that's another car in strife at the same part of the circuit. We've just seen Matt Rees off the road. Now, further up, it's Starkey's. Yeah, but what I was about to say was, did he have to go round the outside of Matthew Rees, and that's what put him offline? Because Matthew Rees has just rejoined ahead of him, and maybe that's what threw Stephen Jelly. It's a big hit into the tyres, the safety car again. Now let's piece it together. This is how Stephen saw it. Yeah. So, looking ahead, have we got Rees rejoining the track? Yes, we have. Rees coming back on right in front of him. Well, there was room, but I think Jelly just got a bit wide to give a bit of room to Rees rejoining, fearing he'd come across the road. Jelly took his hands off the wheel correctly, but he just got out into the wetter part of the track and got dragged off. Look from the outside, he's a complete passenger at this point, and it's that awful feeling waiting for the bang. And it was a double hit, wasn't it? Hits the front and the back and spins the car around. He knew what was coming. And in his home circuit, the Leicestershire driver Stephen Jelly out of the race. Safety car again. But all of that, as I was suggesting, was triggered by Matt Rees going off the road. He rejoined and trying to, as you say, go around the outside. Stephen Jelly just running out of the road.
When you see a car coming back from the wet grass, you're worried it's going to come, not just stay on the left-hand side of the track, you're worried it's going to come across the road. So Jelly was trying to give a big margin of error on his left, but inadvertently then got himself on the wet part of the track. There was room on the left, but he was worried he'd have collected Rees.
So what that gives us is Will Martin in the lead of the race. Second is George Gamble. Josh Malin is up to third. Angus Whiteside is now fourth and the Pro-Am leader. Fifth is Charles Rainford. He started 13th. Sixth is James Wallace. He started 11th. And the South African driver, Andrew Rackstraw, 7th from 14th. Ollie Jackson next from Will Burns. And then Harry Foster to round out the top 10.
Yeah, James Wallace we haven't talked about. Stephen Jelly, all right. You must think this is like going back to touring cars, isn't it? James Wallace we haven't talked about. The new Porsche Scholar, taking over from Adam Smalley, who won the championship last year in his final year as the Porsche junior driver, Scholar driver, and has moved up to the British GT Championship.
So we're behind the safety car once more here at Donington, and as the incident is attended to, we'll head for a break. Safety car in our sole Carrera Cup GB race of the day. It was being led early on by Matt Rees. It is now being led by Will Martin. The reason for the safety car is to have a bit of a tidy up after Stephen Jelly hit the barriers, but it all started when the race leader, Matt Rees, went off the road at the old hairpin. A little bit of a twitch coming into the braking zone, that unsettled the car. He went way off the road and through the gravel, kept the momentum up and was able to rejoin, so that was the good news. But then as he rejoined, Stephen Jelly tried to go around the outside and give him lots of room, and Stephen himself ended up running out of room and being put on the grass. You'll see what I mean in a moment, because as he comes out of the old hairpin now, Matt Rees' moment is finishing ahead of him. Look left, you'll see Matthew Rees rejoin there. Stephen Jelly goes to the outside and just drifts ever so slightly off the road, and then is a passenger as the car is across the wet grass, and bang, two heavy hits into the tar barrier.
Yeah, a real shame for Stephen Jelly. He was having a good race, and he was trying to give Rees a lot of room on the rejoining, and ended up taking himself off. So real shame for Stephen Jelly. And quite a lot of barrier repair work, which we've already seen today, takes a little bit of time to repair, doesn't it? Stephen Jelly walked away totally unharmed, of course. I say of course because the cars are very strong, and that was a nice relatively soft landing into the tyre barrier. He's trying to work out how to get back now, but he's quite a long way from the pit lane, isn't he? It's a long walk back through some fairly wet, muddy infield as well.
So, safety car for the second time in this race. Will Martin is the race leader now from George Gamble, and they gained track position after an incident coming out of Redgate that involved not just the two of them, but also Sid Smith, who was second overall and leading Pro-Am at the time. He has continued, albeit a long, long way back with a little bit of damage. So Martin from Gamble, from Josh Malin third. Angus Whiteside is fourth, Charles Rainford is fifth, and James Wallace for JTR, the Tandy entry. He's in sixth place then, as the cars now head once more down through the Craner curves. That is the Eden Race Drive car. Josh Malin, the new team in the entry list for this year, headed by Dino Zamparelli, Nolan driver himself, of course, in the history of Carrera Cup GB. And Josh Malin, who came Porsches, the diabetic driver, still eager for his first win in one of these cars, BRDC Rising Star, and the first win ain't that far away, surely. Let's have a look at some of these starts as well. Fourth row of the grid is where you'll see one of the cars that's being investigated.
Yeah, I couldn't see anything wrong with the start. It was Harry Foster and Josh Malin that were both being investigated. Whether it was for out of position in their pit box, in their grid box, I don't know. But that's going to be investigated after the race. Up front, it was Rees making a good-ish start. Not as good as Will Martin, who got forced nearly on the grass, but he managed to hold that position in the lead.
So, safety car once more to the timing line. The clock is ticking on down, so we're on that 13 of 24. We've got 10 minutes of the race remaining were it to go to time. That's looking out of the front of Stephen Jelly's car as it is taken away. You can see the witness marks across the grass. The tyre barrier has just about been repaired. The Donington track staff have been oh so busy today. More bits of car and floppy marker scooped up at the chicane, so the road should be clear by the time the race cars come back into that right-left sequence at the end of the next lap. But there's quite a bit for that marshals to clear up.
Yeah. It's still part of the circuit just coming down to the old hairpin. Still remains the tricky part of the track, doesn't it? I noticed behind Matt Rees, when he went off, the second place car was also having a bit of a moment, yeah. But managed to stay on. But it's obviously still a little bit of a dodgy area of the track in terms of grip level.
Sid Smith has also retired to the pit lane, incidentally, with his damage after that earlier incident. So Sid Smith out. We also lost Will Aspin into the gravel. He triggered safety car period at 1. Josh Stanton has retired with damage, and Stephen Jelly, as we've seen so graphically, out of the race with the incident up at Trot's Curve. So currently we're on lap number 14. There is Sid Smith in the pit lane. Really disappointing that after a great qualifying, class pole and second on the grid outright. Yeah,
very, very disappointing, and he just has got caught up in that incident of the bunching up of the cars and got turned round. Very unfortunate.
So the clerk of the course, Colin Oakley, will be eager to try to get the race back underway as soon as possible, looking at all of the different camera angles he's got in race control to see how far away from being complete is the tyre repair work. Race leaders over the line, still working the cars, working the tyres left and right, generating the warmth. One driver we've not really touched on further down the order, 18th place overall, is Abby Eaton in the Parker Run Rebellion Motorsports car, W Series racer, British GT racer, and class winner in the Blancpain Endurance Series at Monza many, many years ago is Abby Eaton. And she'll be one to watch when the race gets back underway, as will this driver, James Wallace, the Porsche Junior, so taking over the mantle from Adam Smalley. He gets 2 years within the championship, and coming from British GT, in which he was a Mercedes AMG driver last year. James, who began his career in mini-stocks on the ovals, is turning his way now up towards McLean's Corner and is in 6th place overall. He's done a bit of Porsche racing during the winter months to gain experience in Carrera Cup Middle East, had a couple of races, and certainly knows about big, powerful cars, as I say, racing in British GT last year. We're going to go racing at the end of this lap.
Yeah, and a nice retro livery on that James Wallace car as well, mimicking the GT1 Porsche Le Mans winner back in the day, Alan McNish drove.
With Laurent Rayello and Stefan Ortelli, yeah, down towards the chicane they come then. So Will Martin about to accelerate into the chicane. 7 more minutes on the clock then, so it's going to be time, not laps now. So 7 minutes and counting as they blast over the line. Will Martin will lead the way, and he will head towards Redgate, 0.6 of a second to the good then, with Gamble second, Josh Malin third, but with this Damocletian investigation, in 4th place it is Angus Whiteside from Rainford, and then Wallace to round out the top 6.
Yeah, so a good start by Martin, controlled that well, but he's got the experienced George Gamble behind him, and George will be able to pace himself off Will Martin, but Martin very much the experienced man. He was racing in Porsche Cup North America last year, so a full Porsche Carrera Cup Series in North America, and indeed he was actually 3rd in the Pro Division there.
Right, so at the moment it is Will Martin getting away. George Gamble adapting back to Carrera Cup after 3 seasons of touring cars, the last of which was in a front-wheel drive car. And a change imminent for 3rd place, look, because now Angus Whiteside comes up to have a go at Josh Malin on the inside line. Really good run out of Coppice, and Whiteside goes through up on the inside line there. So very bold effort into the chicane. Number 52, Angus Whiteside, the Pro-Am leader, 3rd overall.
Passing a Pro driver as well. He didn't need to do that, but he's winning his class comfortably.
And now Charles Rainford in the turquoise and blue CCK car up on the inside of Josh Malin to try to go 4th. Charles Rainford, who goes really well in these cars as well as in historic sports cars, comes up to the inside line. That's going to put him on the outside for the next part of the Craners. No, it won't, because he's already ahead, so the job is done. And has Malin got a problem, because now James Wallace comes up to have a go, and there's nothing Malin can do to stop him.
Yeah, Malin's slipping back. Something not quite right with his car on this restart, is there?
Yeah, you're right. So he's having a go to see if he can fight back against James Wallace, and in so doing, keep Andrew Rackstraw, the South African driver, at bay. Around McLean's corner they go, 5 more minutes on the clock, but right now Will Martin has checked out.
Yeah, he's gone, hasn't he? Nice little gap at the moment, just over a second. With just 5 minutes to go as they sort of come up to complete this lap.
Josh Malin is trying to fight back on the inside line there against Wallace, down towards the braking zone. The darker livery, the Eden Race Drive car, Josh Malin, and he does go back ahead then, so he retakes the place. Rackstraw and Jackson closing up as well. Less than 5 minutes to go as they come over the line. So Will Martin, fastest lap of the race, just done, 1.7 seconds clear.
There's point for fastest lap as well in the Carrera Cup.
And Matthew Rees, after his dramas down at the old hairpin, he's trying to fight back as well. So he was 10th across the line, and as you can see, the black and green car edging its way forward. He's not done yet as the drivers blast down towards the old hairpin. Wallace back ahead of Malin. Wallace with the tail wagging is in danger of losing out. Josh Malin tries to go around the outside, can't do it. Slots back in behind. He's close enough to make a dive at McLean's, but he's got to be mindful of where Rackstraw is behind him. To the inside line looks Malin, possibly a tap in the tail. He was sideways. Jackson now comes up, number 48, the white, gold and blue and red-nosed car on the inside of Andrew Rackstraw, and through he goes. So one up for Ollie Jackson.
Yeah, I think that Josh Malin defensive move was more about trying to keep Rackstraw behind than it was to attack James Wallace, but James Wallace has kept that position this time through to the end of the lap. The front four, as they come across the line, the gap at the front is now nearly 2 seconds, 1.8 seconds between Martin and Gamble.
Yeah, Will Martin doing a very good job here, getting away all the time, isn't he? As there, look, James Wallace has to really work now to try to hang on to position. Will Martin could be on for an 8th win in Carrera Cup as he comes onto the top of the Craner curves once again. Great battles rage on all the way through the order. Now, Matthew Rees actually lost a place last time. He was back down to 11th, the early race leader. There he is at the back of this little group, and ahead of him, number 16, that is Harry Foster. These two trading the place, but Matthew Rees, after looking really strong early on, struggling to claw his way back up the order here. Not
so easy to pass in these cars, and Harry Foster's making him go the long way round, all the way round at McLean's. Can he cut in front as they get to Coppice? No, Harry Foster's still on the inside. Rees going all the way around the outside, but they're going to be side by side, as indeed we are here.
For second place, George Gamble under attack. He hangs on to it on the inside, but Angus Whiteside, the Pro-Am leader, having the race of his life right on the back of George Gamble's car. Charles Rainford is right there behind them as well. Remember, he started 13th. They come across the line. The leader is away and gone. Almost forget Will Martin now with 2.5 minutes to go. 2 laps remain. Gamble on the inside, Whiteside on the outside. Rainford tries to squeeze up the inside, can't do it. And George Gamble now having to make that car in second place incredibly wide to keep Whiteside at bay.
Yeah, he's carrying some damage on the car, is George Gamble. I wonder if that's what's hindering him a little bit. But nevertheless, this is a great race by Angus Whiteside. Definitely his best race so far in Carrera Cup, and on for his best overall finish.
Shows what seat time will do, doesn't it? Mileage and confidence and experience. He's quicker than Gamble, who of course is returning to Porsche racing, so he's not spent as much time in the cars in recent seasons as Whiteside, who's on the outside line. Rainford tries to get his nose up the inside. Number 99, the turquoise and blue car at the back of this battle pack is Charles Rainford's, and there right into the back of Gamble. Angus Whiteside possibly caught out by George's speed. That gives Rainford a chance on the outside. But Gamble hangs on to position, and while they squabble, they're being caught by James Wallace in 5th place. He's getting nearer and nearer as they come through. They've still got 2 more laps to go, in fact, because there's enough time left to get this lap and one more as more bodywork, more debris flies. Lock up into Redgate, that was from Whiteside, but Gamble hangs on.
Well, it was somebody's splitter that they ran over on the start-finish line, but this is going to be a real battle over the last couple of laps. Can Gamble hold on? Will James Wallace manage to pick up a few places?
Well, possibly so, because Charles Rainford has got a bit stuck behind Whiteside, but while Whiteside is defending, that's allowing George Gamble to get away. Will Martin is the leader now by over 3 seconds. Gamble trying to edge clear. Rainford on the back of Whiteside thinking, this isn't right, you're a Pro-Am, I shall be ahead of you. But then they've got the impressive newcomer James Wallace right up behind them as well, and Wallace in turn is bringing Josh Malin with him. Josh wasn't so good at the restart, but has sort of got back into a rhythm.
Yeah, there's the splitter on the exit of the chicane, sitting on the on the track, but it's not on the line, so that should be clear now. But it's anyone's race for second place as they start the last lap.
And that group comprises, as they come through, George Gamble at the head of the queue, then Angus Whiteside, then Charles Rainford, and then James Wallace. Small gap back to now Andrew Rackstraw, who's up into 6th place. Another lock-up from Whiteside as he goes into Redgate. He'd be well-versed now just to hang on to this and try and take the class win, wouldn't he? Getting the replay of Malin going wide, coming out of Coppice. This is how Rackstraw got ahead of him, because Josh Malin went rally crossing.
Yeah, and definitely had to lift off there on the very slippery grass.
That's your leader, that's Will Martin. Great drive. And, of course, this is going to be a first-time out win for Eden Race Drive. Yeah,
very much so. Great for the team, great for Dino Zamparelli. And Will Martin, up the inside. No, that's just defending. But Wallace has run wide, and Rackshaw gets back up the inside of him. He's lost that place. He might lose another. No, he cuts back in.
Josh Malin is the one on the attack now. James Wallace will go a little bit wide coming out of Coppice. Gets up alongside. Angus Whiteside is still keeping Charles Rainford at bay. That's the race leader. This is the easy bit. This is Will Martin. Out of the chicane, checkered flag at the ready. Will Martin wins round 1 of Carrera Cup GB. For second, it is just going to be George Gamble, who heads towards the line. And then Angus Whiteside is third. Charles Rainford fourth. Andrew Rackstraw fifth ahead of Malin. Wallace drops to 7th. 8th is Jackson. Will Burns 9th. Harry Foster rounds out the top 10. And the man that led early on, Matt Rees, only 11th.
Yeah, couldn't get back any further than that. He was on the back of that big group for second place, but that's a great start to his season for Will Martin. And his deal only came around very late in the day, actually, with this team. So great to